Journey through Middle-earth in the Lord of the Rings, the Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game. Thank you for joining us at Tantrum House Studio D. I'm Melissa Delp.
And I'm Kevin Delp. The Fellowship of the Ring trick-taking game is a cooperative, you won't believe it, trick-taking game. And it's for 1 to 4 players. It's designed by Brian Bornmueller and published by Office Dog.
Now, they sent us this copy to review. In this video, we'll give a super quick overview of the game, and then we'll share our thoughts. So this game is played over 18 consecutive chapters that follow the story of the Fellowship of the Ring. So you'll start with a long-expected party and continue until the breaking of the Fellowship.
For each chapter, there's a card with some story text and then some setup info. It will tell you which characters to play with, any special rules, and the victory conditions.
For many of the chapters, each player will choose a character who has a specific goal to achieve. These are things like winning a certain number of tricks or winning certain cards. For each trick, the lead player will play a card, and then every other player plays 1 card into the trick. Players must follow the lead suit if possible. The highest card of the lead suit wins the trick.
The deck has 4 main suits: hills, mountains, forests, and shadows, with cards 1 through 8 in each. There's also a rings suit with cards 1 through 5. The one ring is special. The player dealt this card plays as Frodo and can use this card to win a trick, even if it doesn't match the lead suit.
Once you've played all the tricks, if you've completed the victory conditions for the chapter, you can advance to the next one. Some chapters have short conditions that can be won with 1 hand, and others have long conditions that will require several hands to complete.
Now, after finishing all 18 chapters, you can replay any chapter you'd like or follow the rules for creating your own in the road goes ever on section of the rulebook.
I know that was just a basic overview of the game, but we'll go into some more details as we talk about our opinions.
Now we're separating the video into 4 sections. The 4 C's are thoughts about the components, our critiques, our commendations, and finally our conclusions. And from this point forward, we are going to have to spoil some stuff. We've played through all 18 chapters, and now we'll be talking about aspects of some of those chapters for our review. So if you don't want any of that revealed, then I'd recommend skipping the rest of the video.
Spoilers! We're going to start with our thoughts about the components. So one of the things that stands out first to me is the shiny box. I really love that hollow foil aspect going on with it.
Yeah, it is really, really cool. And for components now, we have mostly cards in the box. There are a few tokens, like the big 1 ring.
Yeah, it's the 1 ring that you flip over once rings have been broken.
Speaking of cards, I really like the artwork in the cards. It does have this like stained glass feel to it, and with the bold lines, the vibrant colors. I think the different suits sort of make sense with the hills, the mountains, and one thing you do sort of have to be careful of is people don't get this confused, but...
Right, because the shadows have like Mount Doom on them.
Right.
But it's the shadow suit, and then the mountain suit,
yeah,
and then the hill suit's
got this cool...
is actually the like the hobbit holes.
Right.
So the mountains look like they could be mountains or hills.
Yeah. And what do you think of the inside?
Well, I really like that they had different sections in the box, like mini boxes that you open up to reveal new things as you're going through the chapters. There are also really helpful ribbons in the box, and as long as you put it away correctly, which we don't always do, then you can just pull the ribbon and easily get the cards out of those boxes and those sections.
All right, let's move into our critiques.
Okay, so there are 18 chapters in this game, and in some of them, like some of the characters you play over and over,
yeah, like Frodo.
A lot of times.
Like Frodo's in almost every chapter. Almost
right.
Every chapter.
So in some senses, it can feel a little samey, especially if you do end up choosing the same characters over and over again. I will say I have mixed feelings on Frodo because it's not a choice. Almost always, if you are dealt that 1 ring,
You have to be Frodo.
You have to be Frodo. So even if you're like, oh, I wanted to try that character because it looks really interesting, or my hand would be really good for that other character,
Yes.
some of that choice is taken from you.
Right, yeah. There are some characters like you need a certain suit of cards or something, so I totally agree. That might just really hurt that round or that hand. But, I don't think since we played all 18 chapters, doesn't feel like one person was always Frodo.
Right.
So you did get to play other characters.
Especially if you are playing 4 players.
Yeah.
It's,
I will also say another critique will be the card quality. At the beginning, I think I like how it feels, but we've played, more than 18 games because we had to play a few chapters multiple times.
More than once, and we've played it with a couple different friend groups.
So we've introduced like other chapters, so we've played it quite a bit already. And I would say the card quality feels like it's starting to wear. It wouldn't be as big a deal, but there is a point where you are adding another suit of cards into...
Spoiler!
Right, that's another spoiler. Another suit of cards, which I think is awesome, but then you have sort of a new suit of cards mixed with a worn suit of cards, and you can maybe... I don't think it made as much a difference right now, but it could make a difference in that. I will also say it could be because we live in a more humid environment. We live in South Carolina, and just the humidity could make a difference on making those cards wear a little bit faster than other cards in other areas of the country or world.
We do not sleeve our games, so
Right.
I know that is another way to help protect the cards, but it's not really what we do.
Yeah. Go on one more critique.
All right, so another critique is difficulty level.
Yes.
Some chapters were pretty easy and some were pretty difficult.
Which I'm okay with.
But
Here's
a
the
lot of
critique.
it will come down to how well your group is
That's
playing trick takers. So we played with an experienced group and still had some difficulties in a few key chapters.
Which I am fine with.
Right.
I actually like the more difficult chapters. Like, oh, can we make it? Can we accomplish that chapter? But
And then we played with some friends who are not as experienced with trick takers, and some of those easier chapters were more difficult.
yeah, so my fear is that people will purchase this at their local game store or online or whatever, and they'll be like, oh, that's cool, I like the theme, and then they'll get to those hard chapters and they might just never play the game again or something because it's so difficult. They might not be players that play these kinds of games. So.
Right. Yeah, I do think, it goes from simpler to more complex. So it does give you some sort of training as you go along. But there's a lot of nuance in trick takers, especially cooperative trick takers.
Yeah, we haven't really talked about the co-op nature of it. Sometimes we had one time we were playing with some friends, and the one guy was just maybe giving a little too much information. Like, you got to be careful. Like in a co-op trick taking game, you're not supposed to just reveal all your information.
But I would say while these are critiques, they're still kind of minor things.
Yes.
Should we go into our commendations?
Commendations.
So I do like the campaign nature of the game where you are unlocking things and there are new interesting twists from game to game. I know I sort of said something about sameness, but there are some interesting things, some interesting unlocks. And you go, oh, wow, that kind of changes what we were doing. Or, oh, that really fits into what was happening in the story.
Yeah, even the river deck coming in, it makes sense when the river suit comes in. I really like that the theme and the story, Fellowship of the Ring, really does connect to the gameplay. There's a lot of examples. I think we'll just give 2 that really stood out to us. One that I really thought was interesting was when the Fellowship is in the mines of Moria and they're fighting the Balrog. Gandalf, his character, changes and he's basically able to play any card he wants during that round. So he doesn't have to follow suit. Which makes sense because he has magic. So it has that feel like he can, use his magic to sort of help that round out. So
yeah, the example I thought of is when they are trying to get to Rivendell, so you've had Weathertop, Frodo's injured, the Black Riders are chasing them, and there are actually Black Rider cards that you introduce into the 1 or 2 games during that part of the book that cause you some issues as you go along. So I really enjoyed how those things worked out.
The asymmetrical characters, I think, are really a cool part in the game. You know, we did mention the sameness and like maybe there's always Frodo in the deck. Now, one of the things that I think is a commendation is there's a lot of characters that are introduced, and those will have you be trying to accomplish different things. So there's not asymmetrical power per se, but they're trying to...
Yeah, their goals are different, so your play style is going to be different when they're in the game versus when they're not in the game. So I'm kind of looking forward to making your own versions and being able to mix and match some of those characters, because some of them are really interesting and you're like, how am I going to do this? How am I going to get 1 through 8 of like take tricks with all the different cards in them? So
I like that you can just jump in and play a chapter. Like, I really like chapter 5 or chapter 10 or whatever the chapter 12 is, I think, one of the harder ones. But I like that in this game. It's, you know, some legacy games, some legacy co-op games, like Pandemic or Ticket to Ride Legacy, you have to sort of start at the beginning and you gotta work your way through. You can't be like, I want to play this certain chapter. It's just not possible. But in this game, it is possible, which I really appreciate.
Yeah, because it's not really legacy. You're not destroying anything. You're not changing anything. You just have to find the right cards for the setup for each chapter.
One other thing, I think you have one more thing, but I like the small box. I think that's all packed in here. It packs a big punch. There's like 18 chapters, and I think it's a great game for what's in the box.
I think you did have one other thing you wanted to mention.
I did too. With any chapters that you can play, there is a promo pack. It also has a little foil shininess to it. Some local game stores will be offering this chapter 16 and a half, The Gifts of Galadriel. So if you go to a local game store, ask them if they have, of course, this game, but ask them if they have the promo pack, if they're participating in that. 16 and a half is The Gifts of Galadriel, and it's basically the time when the Fellowship is leaving Lothlorien. Thank you. I was like, Lothlorien. My Lord of the Rings cred here. But they're leaving Lothlorien, and Galadriel is gifting bestowing the Fellowship with different gifts, and it's got a fun little story to that.
Yeah. So the last thing that I wanted to mention was the One Ring card. So the only trump card basically in the game. I like that it's actually flexible. You can play it. When you play it, you can choose whether or not to win the trick. So if it's more advantageous to not win it and let someone else have it, that's fine. But if you really need to win a trick, you can use it for that. And another interesting thing is, we've already talked about how the ring usually goes with Frodo. If that was a minor critique. But it is also, I think, helpful in the game to know who has that ring.
Oh, there's been times I'm like, I don't know how we're going to win. And I'm like, but that person has the One Ring. Yes, we're going to be able to do it or something.
So it does remind me a little bit of the crew, where I think in both versions, the captain is the player, or the sub-commander in Deep Sea is the one who has the 4 sub, so the most powerful, basically trump suit. So you know who has that during your games of the crew. And this was similar with Frodo in the One Ring.
I agree. Let's move to our conclusions.
Okay.
So Melissa mentioned the similarities between this game and the crew with the space theme and the sea theme. I agree. So if you've played these games, and we really enjoyed these games, I think you're automatically going to like this game because it has that co-op nature feel. It has that sort of, you're trying to accomplish goals. Now, it's definitely different in the way that all happens, but it has a little bit of that crew feel. One note is this only plays 1 to 4. This plays 3 to 5, so a little bit different on player counts.
Right. We did not play the solo game, so I don't have any experience with that. But we did try the two-player variant of the Fellowship of the Ring, and you have a kind of third dummy player, sort of.
He's not stupid.
and whoever's Frodo controls that player.
I was okay with it. It reminded me a little bit of Seven Wonders Duel. If you played that with the pyramid shape, I don't know if I like...
Right, because that's how you lay out that player's hand of cards. Some of them are available, some of them are face down, some of them are face up. So you have some information.
Yeah, so you know, of course, your hand, you know some of that person's hand, and you're like, oh, how's that? And they become a character. So you're like, how's this person going to accomplish? And we did, I would say when we played, we did okay. I did feel because it was much more set, you know, if it was a real player playing that hand, he probably would be playing cards a little differently. And that's probably why I probably wouldn't play this 2-player personally.
Right. And we should probably always tell people that we're not big 2-player game players.
Yeah.
So we're not the best advice on if you love playing games 2-player, you might want to still check it out. But for us, we're usually going to try to find 3 or 4 players to play this one.
I think you probably already know this, but we've really enjoyed this game. We played through all 18 chapters and wanted to play those 18 chapters. It wasn't a bore to do that. I'm really interested if there's going to be more. So this is the Fellowship of the Ring, which is sort of the first volume in the Lord of the Rings.
Of a trilogy.
It's a trilogy, so. Now, will there be the 2 towers? I don't actually know, but I would love for there to be another, box game with 2 towers.
So many more characters to bring in, situations.
What I would like to see, though,
settings.
Just like the crew can play up to 5, I would love to see if the next game can play up to 5. I mean, we have a fellowship. You would think that it's more than 4. So...
Maybe. Okay. Yeah, although some of those were hard enough with 4. You would need more cards. You would need at least another suit.
Which they do bring another suit at the end, so it was like, oh, maybe they could have added another player or something. So,
anyway. But yes, I really enjoyed it. Even after playing all 18 plus some, I'm interested in playing it more, potentially trying some homemade scenarios, which the rules do talk about how to set that up, or even tackling some of those harder chapters over again to see if we can do them more efficiently.
Yeah, some of them we barely made it, and I was like, some of them, of course, we failed, and then we barely made it. I was like, oh, let's try that. Yeah, I would love to try it again, too. I agree. Now, this game is going to be, I think, released broadly in January 2025. This game will be sort of a big event at TantrumCon. So we'd love for you to come to TantrumCon. That's January 23rd through 26th. Office Dog is sponsoring an event, and there's going to be a lot of copies at TantrumCon of the Fellowship of the Ring. And you can play it, learn it, win it, enjoy it. And I'm excited about that.
We also will be having a playthrough on our channel. It will be early December, so the first or second Thursday in December, we're going to be playing it live, probably chapter 1, and then maybe we'll dive a little deeper into one of the
we'll definitely have to play it a couple
chapters.
Chapters, because, that would just be one round. That'd be super short.
Right, because most of the rounds are probably 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Depending on setup and all of that. So
definitely watch, and you can watch the first round, sort of get the feel for it, and if you want to stay just to see another chapter, you can stick around for that. So thank you so much for joining. Please like this video. Please subscribe to Tantrum House. Let us know in the comments, do you enjoy co-op trick-taking games? Do you like the Lord of the Rings theme like we enjoy? Let us know maybe who your favorite character is in the Lord of the Rings books. We'd love to hear from you.